Today we have Ernie Bolton, who's going to give us a little bit of his story. And so I'm his son doing the interviewing. And so, Dad, can you tell us what year you were born and what were the circumstances at that time?
I was born in 1927, and that was a very good time before the Depression. But by the time I was 5 to 6 years old, the Depression come along, and it made things kind of poorly. I have 4 brothers, 3 older and 1 younger, and so we had quite a rambunctious crew there. And when you sit down at the table, you better take what you wanted the first time around, or there was no more left the second time around. Went to school. I started early when I was 5. In those days, people only started when they were 6. But I had started doing some of the homework of my older brother, and so I was able to start when I was 5. So I finished up, and I would skip 1 year, so I finished up when I was 12, and then I went 1 year to high school when I was 13. And then that was in a bad time in the Depression, so then I decided I would quit school and get a little job so that I could have a little bit of money. And so I worked on the farms around different places for 2 or 3 years. And then I started working in the factory. Worked in Sarnia at the Dow Chemical Rubber when they were building the rubber plant for the Second World War. And then when that was built, I moved to Wallsburg and worked at the Schultz die casting factory. And then I worked there for about 9 months. I was laid off, and then the Selective Service could send you any place in the wartime when you were single. So they sent me to Brantford to work in Slingsby's woolen mill. So I worked in there for about 9 months, and then I come back to Wallsburg and worked in Heinz factory when they were doing tomatoes. And then after that, I thought I would join the Army. I was 17 and a half, and my mother could sign for me, so I could join the Army. And so I was in the Army, and then the war got over. But before that, we used to come home to Wallsburg on the long weekends when we had a weekend pass from the Army. And that's when I met Teresa at the dance hall in Wallsburg, and that was the start of the big romance. And then we were married in September in 1945 in Wallsburg. So that was the beginning of our family life, and then we built a house out Wallsburg a little ways, had a couple of acres of ground, and so we grew vegetables and chickens, and had a calf and one thing another. And then we decided to sell that. We got the house, got it paid for and built up, and we decided we would sell the house and go go farming. And I was still working at the glass factory, so we moved out to the farm. We had to build a new house there so we could have a good place to live in, and I had to keep on working at the factory so we would have income until we got the farms built up, and then we kept chickens and had laying chickens, sold eggs, and worked in the factory. And then we built a pig barn, a modern pig barn, and then I quit the factory and started working, managing full-time on the farm. And in the meantime, we had 4 children and kept Teresa awful busy. We had David, Dale, and Danny, and Diane, and but it was a good place out on the farm for them. We had couple of horses for them to ride around on, and lots of room to play and lots of room to fight. And so that's where we got our start. And I don't know where we go from there.
Well, 5 years ago you moved into town, Dad?
Yeah, well, we moved back into Wallsburg after we retired from that, and we bought a house here in Wallsburg and fixed it up what we wanted, and here we are at a very nice place in Wallsburg, and happy to be back where we started from.
You celebrated your 80th birthday how long ago, Dad?
A year ago, last May, and Teresa celebrated hers in July the 6th in 2006.
2006. So what happens now every week? You get to play cards at a few other things?
Well, in the wintertime, the retirees play cards at the UAW Hall, and then I like to go fishing once in a while, so sometime I go fishing once a week.
How long have you been married?
And
How long have you been married now, Dad?
well, we're working on our 63rd year.
And how come your garden keeps getting bigger?
Well, that's my hobby. That's my physical and mental resource to keep me happy and keep me sane.
So you're still canning and preserving different things, are you?
Oh yeah, we do make a lot of our own food and bread and canned stuff, jam and tomatoes, and freeze a lot of stuff. So we have a lot of good fresh food that we produce ourselves. This year we've got lots of radishes and asparagus and lettuce and beans and beets and all kinds of things.
So you're still feeling good and still feeling strong, are you?
Well, I'm still feeling pretty good for an old fella.
Okay, Dad, we want to thank you, and we're glad that we can preserve this for future generations.